Tim, how are you, mate?
Good mate. Good mate. Thanks for having me on. How are you
Oh,
doing?
mate. Well, like I was just saying before, I've been a big fan of your work for many years, and I've just honestly I've been absolutely loving immersing myself in your work, your comics, your illustrations, artworks, everything in preparation for this podcast. And like, yeah, I would honestly say I'm absolutely in awe of your imagination. It's a wild ride. I love it.
I'm glad you're enjoying.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it seems like we have a few similar interests and crossovers of weird subjects that I'm sure we'll dive into in this chat. So, it seems like there's plenty to talk about.
It's all connected, man.
That's it, man. Everything happens for a reason, Tim. So yeah, I guess starting with your just incredibly imaginative, strange, bonkers kind of comics and stuff. I mean, where did your creative journey begin?
I mean,
Like,
like I think it began when I was a toddler, just making marks with crayons on paper, to be honest.
mm,
I think that 90% of people who are still making art are people who were always making art, you know what I mean?
right, right.
Um, but so I was just always an artist. I always wanted to do to at least draw all the time, which is what I
Hmm.
sort of did all through my childhood. By the time I was 17, I was making 16, 17, I was making little like comic zines and distributing them around in like record stores and posting them up in bus stops and before before the internet. At least as it is today. You had to think very locally. But
Yeah.
I was just doing that. I was doing comics, I was making art, I was always a big fan of the surrealist kind of movement, I suppose. Like
Mhm.
my I seem to recall pulling down a Dali book from my mother's bookshelf when I was very young. Um, my By the time I was 13, X-Files came along, and
Right.
that
Nice.
certainly injected some material into a developing mind. My mother had quite a interesting experience that she told me about when I was younger. So I don't know, that's a milieu, part of the
Go
milieu
on.
there.
Well,
We can get to it now. Like
yeah.
we can get to it later, probably.
Sure, sure.
Uh, but then when 17, 18, I started doing comics for the university magazine in Auckland, which is where I was in New Zealand. Grew up in New Zealand.
Right, right.
And at that point, all of my work was very, cartoony, sort of slapstick, kind of drunken antics, which appealed to, I think, people in their first year at university. Everybody was having their own drunken antics at IRL.
Mhm.
And then, to be honest, I'm on a trajectory still that started when a bunch of my friends and I did some mushrooms and LSD. I
Yeah,
was about
yeah.
19, 20, I guess. Not, I mean, I had some extremely intense, uh, powerful experiences that were mixed up with some lucid dreaming that was happening to me at the time, and a raft of bizarre synchronicities. Felt very, very connected to something very strange. But like I wasn't hitting the old psychedelics as hard as some. It was a couple of big experiences, and then on with the work.
Yeah, that was plenty.
And
Yeah.
it's just where I am now is just I just sometimes I'm like, where did that 25 years go? Or that 20 years go? It's just sort of happened. Bunch of other many, many, many other things have gone into it, to the body of work, as far as influences go, like over time. But it's really kind of the short story, probably omitting a lot of things. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, very, very similar origin story to myself actually. And yeah, isn't it crazy how I've got I've done lots of psychedelics over the years and have lots of friends that have. And yes, I mean, some people it's just like, yeah, that was a fun experience. And other people it can just completely change the trajectory of their lives or just
Mm.
completely stimulate some, I don't know, creativity that was, just under a rock that was just kicked over. Yeah, it's, I don't know, always amazed at the power of, what it can unearth.
It's crazy. So, I mean, I've seen some extremely negative stuff happen due
Mm.
to,
Yeah, yeah, same.
overdoing stuff too. But yeah, I mean, definitely a kickstart to something.
Mm.
Um,
Was it always
Been a while, been a
comics?
long time.
Yeah, nice.
Sorry.
Was it always were comics and illustrations always kind of how you saw your creative career unfolding? Was that always the goal? Or graphics
Yeah,
novels?
I mean, pretty much. I really wanted to. I studied animation for actually forget sometimes that I even did that. I studied animation for 4 years in Auckland. So there was a period of time where I was very, you know, before I went into that, I think I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do. Um, in terms of where I wanted to end up, I got
Mm.
into animation school and I did pretty well really at that. And my idea was like, I'm going to get a job at a big studio and then I'm going to work my way up the ranks and I'm going to like direct films and do all that. But it didn't take me very long in the industry to realize that especially in New Zealand, pardon me, especially in New Zealand, that was pretty unrealistic. And I don't know, at a certain point, I moved to Melbourne and just got into, uh, washing dishes and partying and playing music and going to see music 5 nights a week and making art and just like kind of getting back into kind of like deciding, oh, you know what? I mean, for now I can just wash dishes and I'll be earning quite a lot more than I was working as an animator in New Zealand,
Mm.
and I can use that extra time to realize my own creative goals. And met a bunch of people in Melbourne that helped me along that path, including John Bayonart, who I
Mm.
think you had a podcast
Lovely,
recently.
lovely bloke. Yeah, yeah, he's a great guy.
Good friend, and he's
Yeah.
absolutely invaluable for that. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like it's I still don't really know what I want to do when I grow up, but it's at this point it's sort of kind of semi-working. I feel every day we're getting squeezed a little bit more by the algorithm into becoming, I don't know, dancing monkeys. I don't know.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
a bit
My
of
new
cynicism there.
my new favorite Instagram thing to hate on is the video where people are standing with their canvas and slowly turn around for the reveal.
Like
Everyone's doing that.
I can't bring myself to do it. Plus my paintings are so small, I look like a real idiot. Like holding it up, twisting it around. I don't, yeah, like I have literally in the last sort of week or so made fun of that myself. I mean, I don't blame anybody for doing it if they think it's
Yeah,
gonna.
same. Exactly. Whatever
Algorithm,
works,
who's the
right?
algorithm gods that like,
Yeah. No, I
I don't
agree. I don't blame anyone either. It's just like how do
know.
it's hard. It's hard to it's like now you have to make movies and reels. We start doing that. Now the reels get no traction. You're like, what else?
Yeah,
But yeah, I know.
yeah.
Just like I don't know. Just teach me how to care less. That's the goal, right? Which I don't. I'm completely addicted. So I'm not better than anyone here. That's no judgment. Just
Yeah.
Hey, take us back to that. So, you're making these comics, Drunken Antics. You had your psychedelic experience. Like, what happened in your psychedelic experience that really kicked things or shifted gears, maybe?
Well, I mean, it was sort of a period of time really that included a bunch of psychedelic experiences.
Mm,
And I mean, like I tell this story, which I think sums up trying to focus too hard on one aspect of a period of time like this. Like we did some marvelous time. We did some LSD one time, and we were in like a national park in New Zealand, and just like stunning scenery, like beach, like mountains, forests, just running around, having some experiences with a bunch of people. There were maybe 20 of us or something. It was a crazy night. But over the course of the night, I had a notebook with me, and I was drawing in it, and I was writing in it, and I was tapped into something, man. Like I,
Mm.
whenever I got a chance, I was sitting down, I was writing. I felt that I'd fathomed something that I hadn't fathomed before, under the influence of this compound in my brain. And, it was a very deep and meaningful experience. And I woke up in the morning, well, you know, not that I went to sleep, but in the morning I sort of emerged from whatever it was I was doing while I was lying down with my eyes closed. And went for a swim and came back, and it's like, right, time to see what the answer is. And
Mm.
all I'd written in the notebook the whole night, it was so bizarre. It felt like very disturbing. Was just literally just a stick, like a mountain, like that, and a stick figure on top of the mountain, and an arrow pointing towards the figure saying me. That's it. That's what all I did all night. Like, I don't know. It was disappointing. I was expecting to find at least some sort of, disturbing kind of, I don't know, runes translated from another dimension or something. But I don't know. Like, I mean, I had an experience earlier than that on mushrooms where very like visually intense, like freestanding hallucinations, and like I saw a UFO go through. I mean, I didn't see a UFO, but like
Mm.
all of the visual stuff. But then there's like a deeper sort of underlay to it all, um, like a connection to something bigger than my own consciousness, whatever that was. The call of an eagle on a beach sounded like the voice of God to me, at one point,
Right, right.
whatever. But it was more like that period of time I was really starting to get into I've always been into surrealism, but just got into that more. The stuff that maybe had been influencing me to draw silly, drunken, funny comics was less interesting than other things that were coming across my desk because
Mm.
of this other experiences. And it also, I think, probably had something to do with a bunch of very bizarre dream experiences that I had. Always had strange dream experiences, and it's almost like a period of time where I mean, I had some lucid experiences, which are, yeah, I assume that you know about lucid dreaming, and
Yeah, I've had a few,
had a few. Yeah, I
just a
mean, it's the kind of
couple.
thing that you talk to somebody who's never had the experience, and it does sound like made up, but
Mm,
it's a
mm.
pretty powerful experience when you have it's a kind of, it's like the Matrix essentially, but it's
It
the
is.
opposite way, like the real world, but now I'm inside the fake world, but it's much more just as realistic. And those were tied with some strange, occulty sort of stuff that I was getting into. I forget to mention often that this whole time since I was like 10, you know, I've been on like a bit of a quest of my own for, knowledge, what's behind the curtain. I came from a very culturally Catholic, I come from a very culturally Catholic kind of background. Um, we may have gone to church Easter, Christmas, etc. But when I was about 10, the backtrack again now. But when I was about 10, we did like, we still had like Bible study at school back in those days, and I just thought it was all true because it was at school, I'd been taught that that's what we were there to learn. And
Mm.
I came home and I said to my mother, have I been baptized? And she's like, no, that's how Catholic we were. I hadn't even been baptized.
Mm.
I was horrified by that, and I was like, have my brothers been baptized? And they hadn't. So I basically forced my mother to organize um, for me and my brothers to all be baptized and like inducted into the Catholic catechism, and just all of that stuff. And I got very like into it for a year or two. Um, Extremely, like, I mean, as religious as a 10 or 11-year-old can be.
Mm.
Wasn't, I was doing a lot of self kind of study, like I was reading the Bible all the time, and I don't remember having very many conversations with a priest. And I liked going to church. I felt the pomp and the ceremony and the spirituality of it all really appealed to me. But I mean, it wasn't long before I was kind of like, ah, you know, God's everywhere. He's with me when I'm like riding my bike or when I'm playing video games. I don't need
Yeah.
to go to church.
Right, right.
Which was a saving grace, I think, because I had a major like existential crisis about my faith when I was about 12, maybe. I sort of had this like schism in my brain thinking about you know, how under the Catholicism that I had really led myself to believe. I've really got nobody else to blame but myself. But this what I believe was that um, you know, altruistic people who did altruistic things just because they were good people, not because they were afraid of God, they ended up going to hell. You know, that was my belief, what I'd been taught or what I taught myself. And whereas, you know, your average serial killer who confesses at the last minute
Right.
gets to go to heaven. And in my
Right.
mind, I was like, I still believe in all this, but oh my God, it's all around the wrong way. Like we've been worshiping a monster. Like I had a big, you know,
Mm.
I stumbled upon Gnosticism in my own head at like age 12 or 13. I'm really lucky that I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, like whether they were on the side of the Catholic Church or against it. But I just sort of went through that in my head for an afternoon, just like railing against God in my mind, and then I don't know, probably by the end of the day, I was like, oh no, it must all be bullshit. Right, and I was sort of a big weight lifted. But the thing that led me there in the first place has never left me, which is you know, a sense of something mysterious and unseen behind everything that uh, needs to be at least, you know, quested for, if
Right.
not discovered.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. That's so
I don't
early
know.
to be having these I don't know, revelations, right? Like around 12. These are the kinds of things I don't know. I would imagine for myself being questioning much later, maybe like 15, 16 or something like that. But yeah.
Pretty weird. Pretty. It was a weird. The whole thing was a weird thing to do. But that's yeah,
Well,
that's informative. I think that whole experience. So
yeah. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
I mean, well, it's not it's a massive think of the time that you saved that you could have
yeah. Well,
been
it depends what you consider to be worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah,
To
yeah.
spend time on. I mean, I don't know,
That-
but I mean, you know, that period of time when I had those, you know, and like I said, it was 5 or 6 pretty intense experiences over a summer and a winter and a summer or whatever. All of this stuff I think coalesced in my brain and finally congealed into something new. And I started doing a series of comics for the same you know, university publication, um, which were just sort of me kind of playing around with like surrealism and comics and trying to I really believed and still believe that there's a lot of value in like trying to plumb those inner depths of the subconscious through art and trying to sort of, you know, read the tea leaves of what spews out onto the page and trying to be as close to that sort of I feel like I still have very rarely in the art that I've made or anything that I've done had a sort of a message or any sort of, you know, like moral to the story or anything that I'm trying to communicate from up on high. It's more like here's some weird stuff that came out of my brain. Like, what do you think it means? You know, that's it's always been more interesting to me.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's what I find so interesting about your work and ideas. I mean, you have so many ideas, so much it's just so rich. It's like you're tapping into that childlike curiosity that I think almost everyone has, and most people lose it, as life beats you down.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. It's
yeah.
there's a line in there was a period of time in my around the same time, like maybe a little bit after this, when I was oh God, what was I? Around this time, you know, I'd broken up with a girlfriend and I was living in a you know, not living, just crashing on a couch at a friend's house down the road, and they were a bit of a kind of party house, you know. Well, they were a party house. It was there were parties all the time, and they were like, yeah, come stay on the couch, and I got there, and I don't know, like there was nobody there, and I fell asleep on outside and on the couch outside, and there was a book, like a Henry Miller book, and I was flicking through it, and there's a line in this book that just hit me like a lightning rod, and it's almost like that's where you know, the eternal drive to keep going comes from. To paraphrase it, it's something like, you know, the reason that we weep at the lines of the old masters, and he's talking about other writers here. The reason that we weep at those lines is because in them we see the tender shoots of our own ambition, the same tender shoots that we saw trampled by blah 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 other people or ourselves and stuff. And I don't know, it was something about it, something about where I was, like the, you know, a crux in my life. And reading that, I was like, you know, I don't want to weep at the lines of the old masters. You know, that's like
Mm.
I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to be later down the line in my life and regret that I didn't keep pursuing whatever this crazy thing is that I've started doing. And you know, I'm glad that that happened, but yeah, it's weird. I mean, I could have been an accountant. Probably not an accountant. Could have been a fireman or something useful.
Mm.
I don't know, but yeah, it is what it is.
I think it's very useful what you do. It's the magic, you know, and I think that's it's very easy for artists to downplay the importance of art because yeah, I think we all have the similar things. There's social workers out there. There's people who feed the homeless. There's people that really dedicate their lives to great pursuits. And you know, what are we just indulging in our own fantasies and imagination and stuff? But you know, if you look back at any time, any period throughout the ages, you know, that's so much is defined on the periods of time by the cultural art, by
Mm.
the things people were writing, by the music people were making. Yeah, so it's very useful.
I think when I speak like that, I'm sort of making fun of a younger me who was very high on his own supply in my early 20s in terms of like, you know, probably had something to do with the psychedelics, but just the synchronicities and the dreams I was having, I felt very like, you know, and I think this is the most bog standard common experience for you know, a white middle class male growing up where I did in Australasia, is I felt, you know, who was inclined, it was into all this stuff. It was just like, I think I might have something really important to contribute. Not just like, you know, some good art that might be interesting, but like I might be able to change the world. You know, you know, like this, it's, you know, it's a calling. It's up to me. And like I've got down off that cross. I got down off that cross a long time ago. And
Mm.
you know, I think that it's pretty toxic way to go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
It's
anyway.
a very common. I saw that in myself a bit when you know, my deeper dabble into conspiracy theory in like my early 20s and stuff. And yeah, there does, you know, especially when synchronicities start to happen. And you know, I'm still quite excited by the premise of things like
Oh,
synchronicities. I mean, when they do happen, they're amazing, and it's almost too strange to be true. But
something is going
there's
on. I don't know what it is.
for sure,
Something strange is going on.
there is a funny temptation to think you're special in
Yeah,
in all of
yeah.
that, or you've done the research and you know, and they don't, and you know, we all don't
It's
know.
no. And I mean, you know, like I'm not trying to claim that I'm egoless either, but you
Mm,
know, I think, you know, it's yeah, I think that I don't know, like it's I just don't know. I know what I enjoy doing, and I know when it feels like what I'm writing about and pursuing feels, I don't know, like right, you know, and it's
mm,
just I think it's just a feeling that artist has had forever, and it's the muse, you know. It's like a it's a uh it's like it's a weird emotion that's all of all to itself. Like I'm sure that other people have the emotion of the muse, you know, like you know what I mean? But I don't know
Mm.
if you're creative, I don't know what you do with that emotion. Like how do you channel that? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Take us like, yeah, I'd love to kind of just dive, just get a little sample of your just magical creativity of, I don't know, because again, you really do like you build worlds, you build universes and multiverses and characters, and it's not just drawings, there's narratives, there's so much in your work, and I think I was just kind of perusing through your three-part series of a graphic novel called Mr. Unpronounceable. Was that kind of the bulk of your actually was that more of a breakthrough kind of piece that was that the start of where you were really starting to put some of your strange concepts to paper and really run with it?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Mm.
I mean, the comics that I was doing for yeah, I've got some here. The found this the other day. So Mr. Unpronounceable was one character out of many. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
This is very old. This is what 2002. So it's a collection of the strips I was doing for um the university paper, the stuff that was going on in my brain, like, you know, dreams. I had some psychedelics running around, like getting into the symbolist movement and stuff. But Mr. Unpronounceable was just, you know, one character of many that appeared in this sort of series of interconnected kind of dream stories that were, you know, within these sort of one-page narratives. A little kind of setting started to develop, and Mr. Unpronounceable appeared again and again and again. And it's almost like, I don't know, like this whole place and all of these characters and this sort of strange scenario that I've invented over all of this time. It always sort of felt like it was just sort of waiting for me to discover it, you know? Like it
Mm.
again, like there's stuff that comes from dreams that go way back into my childhood, you know, like fever dreams and sort of, you know, strange stuff that you know, is very internal in terms of, you know, these landscapes that we find ourselves inside of. And but yeah, Mr. Unpronounceable just kind of was heaps of fun to write. I think he kind of became my dark kind of you know, self-insert into the world a little bit. It's like unbridled unbridled ego and self-righteousness and just, you know, feverish, you know, pursuit of occult knowledge and stuff. And I think, like, definitely as the years have gone by, it's become a lot more parody than a real sort of, I don't know, like journal into my own, you know, armchair occultism. It's sort of more like, you know, I don't know how far you got with it with the actual sort of story, but he has some very disappointing existential crises of his own, like kind of later on and stuff. And I don't know, yeah, just he's just been a fun character to write and to explore various things through. Like he's one of these he's a character that I can just set loose in a scenario in my brain, and then I just see what he does. You know, it's sort of like I
Mm.
don't like to, like, I'm writing, there's a Mr. Unpronounceable story in progress at the moment. I haven't done any work on it for months because I've been cast headlong into another project, the Painted Wastelands, which is fun. But
Looks
Mr.
incredible.
Unpronounceable, thank you. Mr. Unpronounceable is there's a story in progress. He's currently on the side of a mountain on a big graveyard. He's just received a relic from a vending machine. And I don't really know what's going to happen next. And he's been in that sort of state of suspended hibernation inside my brain for for a while. But you know, at a certain point, I'll have some time, and I'll go, what's going to happen now? And he'll he'll adventure for another page or two inside my mind, and I'll put it on the page, and I'll put it up on the net, and we'll go from there. But yeah.
What's kind of the premise, or who is he? Because the bits that I've read it, you know, there definitely seems like you know, it's kind of, there's definitely a weird, I don't know, surreal. There's a big surreal aspect, but it also seems kind of schizophrenic. You know, it almost seems like
Yeah.
half of it could be a some delusion, or I don't know.
He's a very unreliable narrator. So Mr. Unpronounceable originally comes from a he was inspired by a painting by a guy named Helnwein. I don't know if you know Helnwein. He
I saw the painting
um
in your notes.
oh
Thanks.
you've seen the painting.
Yeah,
So yeah, the painting The Free Spirit is the one. And there was just something really evocative about it. Like I felt that this button down kind of like conservative sort of kind of person coupled with that title, I suppose, but like just this idea that there was this uncontrollable explosion of potentially negative creative like energy inside this mind. And you know, that basically was the original inspiration for Mr. Unpronounceable. He is a wandering, delusional, quite often homeless necromancer slash sorcerer, you know, questing after occult knowledge, purely out of self-interest. He lives and essentially comes from, he considers it his hometown, a place called the City of the Ever Open Eye, which is an eternal, infinite city of dreams, which is on the edge of the 100-year ocean, which it backs against the endless plain, which is a place from earlier dreams, you know, when I was a child. And he, you know, there are various other locales and dimensions that he wanders through. There are potentially, you know, millions of got doppelgangers, whether they're robots or tulpas or just other versions of himself from other timelines and dimensions and things, and he's constantly being harassed and you know, foiled by mysterious entities, you know. And the way that I did the comics over the years was that, you know, sometimes you wouldn't really, I might have done a comic, you know, in 2005 where Mr. Unpronounceable was killed by a shadowy figure or whatever that you weren't sure, and that was the end of the story. He dies all the time. But then, you know, I'd pick up that thread like 10 years later and have a story about Mr. Unpronounceable going through his, you know, his own, this Mr. Unpronounceable is having his story, and then it intersects with the story I did 10 years ago. And it turns out the Mr. Unpronounceable is the one that killed Mr. Unpronounceable, and then you know, the narrative just keeps going with this guy, you know, and it became over the years this sort of intermeshing kind of series of impossible narratives that don't actually make any sense at all when you try to unpick them. So it's just a big mess, really. But it's a mess of his own making, and it's sort of just a way for me to explore this sort of weird world that I've kind of cobbled together over the years as well. But yeah,
you've
quest
mentioned
for occult knowledge.
a quest for occult knowledge.
Yeah. That's the motivation for
Yeah.
Mr.
You've mentioned a few times about your dreams, and you know, we all have pretty strange dreams, but they seem to have had quite the effect on you creatively and just contemplatively. Have there been any particular dreams that were especially strange that stuck with you, that you've kind of felt the need to ponder much more than your average person?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think your average person probably wouldn't see anything in them at all. But I don't know. My mother says that I've inherited the dream gene. She's always, you know, the stuff runs in families, you know. But I mean, I'm always incredibly jealous of people who lucid dream very easily. Like for me, it was like training for the the Dream Olympics. And then as soon as I did it, I was like, okay, it's real, it can be done, it's real. And then I kind of never had another one. But I think this all started for me, like honestly, like this all started for me when I was like 10. Uh, and I had a fever and I fell out of bed. And I suppose in the moment between falling out of bed and hitting the floor, I had a dream, and it was so I was on an endless plane. That's why that place is called the Endless Plane in my comics. The first sort of long form kind of books I did were called The Endless Plane. And it was just a big kind of almost like a rice paddy, but it wasn't. And there was a tower way off in the distance, and then there was a just a bunch of like monks, like in habits, like the robes and stuff, and they were hunched over, and they looked like in later times, they looked like they were harvesting rice, although it wasn't a rice paddy. It was just, I don't know, like grass, thin grass. They were doing something, harvesting something from the ground. And I was one of them in the dream. But I was pretending to be one of them. And they all at the same time just all turned and looked at me, and just darkness and the robes. And um, I became very frightened. And then the horizon started to go like that. And that was probably the reality of falling out of bed. I don't know, but it da 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 da. And then I woke up and I don't know, my fever broke or it got worse. But it's just, I don't know, like that dream is really stuck with me forever.
Wow.
I had a dream around the time that I was expanding my mind a lot more in my early 20s, where I was part of I was inducted into like a dream religion. Like it was a dream where I knew it was a dream, but I didn't have the control over the dream. Like it wasn't lucid. Like I couldn't.
Mm.
I've had dreams where I'm like, well, like
Let's
what
fly.
would happen if
Yeah.
I do this? Like,
Mm.
yeah, well, sure, blah, 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 blah. This was more like I knew it was a dream, but I couldn't control it. And yeah, just inducted into some sort of strange dream cult by a weird kind of sorcerer woman and a group of people, and I don't know, like mechanical sort of they were like mechanical Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. There was like neon. It was in a dark kind of room, and she gave me like a big joint that was like had a huge like bulge in it. And on that it had some like glowing blue runes. Um, and I smoked it, and then they put this device on my head, and it was like a skull's bridle. I don't know if you've ever seen one of them. There was like a rod that went into the back of my throat, so I couldn't talk. I don't know. I mean, just it's nonsense, but um, it's dreams like that have very heavily influenced the way that my imaginary world that I write my stories and kind of proceeds. And I used to write them all down. Like I've still got like multiple, densely packed exercise books just filled with, at that point when I don't write them down anymore. Like I don't dream as much as I used to. Um, it's just time. I'm too busy working.
Mm.
You know,
Yep.
there was a time when I was like my dream recall was so good that I could write like 3 or 4 densely packed pages filled with like conversations and you know so I don't know. There's probably a bunch of really important ones that I'm missing. Certainly the very lucid ones. Just having conversations with entities that are, not entities, but having conversations with characters inside your head. You're talking to a fully fleshed human being there who's some of them are like, isn't it incredible? You're having a dream. And others are like, you know, um, we need to have an intervention. Everybody's worried about you. You're telling everybody that this is a dream, but this is real, and just that sort of and then false awakenings and coming awake and then it's like a Nightmare on Elm Street, that kind of stuff. Like
Mm.
that was all happening to me in real life. It was very confusing. Not quite as horrific as Nightmare on Elm Street. Like I wasn't stalked by Freddy Krueger, but like just that intense sort of other life that goes on when you're very tapped into your dreaming. That's what springs to mind anyway.
Mm. I once did a lucid dreaming workshop at this festival called Entheogenesis Australis, which was a
Mm.
plant medicine conference festival out in the bush. It was great. But yeah, I kind of had a weird it was like the beginning of an experience where, we did some really incredible breath work that felt like, I don't know, it felt like a weird drug trip or something. Like this ball of light was going in my chest. Anyway, but one of the things that this like lady who was trying to teach how to lucid dream was kind of teaching was that you constantly remind yourself that while you're awake, that this is just a dream. This is just a dream. And if you just start reminding, inverted commas, reminding yourself that reality is just a dream, that when you're actually dreaming, you'll also get those prompts, and then you'll realize that this is actually a dream.
Yeah.
Sounds cool in theory, but what I actually found by telling myself over and over that this is just a dream, this is just a dream, I found it actually very negative effect of constantly questioning reality and losing my grip with reality. It didn't get quite that bad because I kind of recognized the signs of just like, oh, I don't think this is good constantly. It was almost making me detached from reality, not attached to anything and not thinking things were real. I just felt the seeds of that starting to grow. I'm like, nope, don't do that anymore. But it's
Yeah.
quite a strange thing what your mind can do. How you can kind of bend reality by telling yourself a different version, a different story, I guess, and very often not for the better.
Yeah. No, I mean the older I've got, the more I've realized how easily manipulated we are as a
Mm,
species, and so much of that is self-manipulation, and like it's very, I think that's in very large portion why, getting into like the occult and practical magic and stuff is super dangerous, because you really can, I think, start to convince yourself of a lot of things that aren't um true. But I mean, some people would say that's the point.
mm,
Like,
right,
you know,
right.
it's I don't know. It's the way that I achieved lucidity with my dreaming was in part that technique, but the way that it was framed to me and that I understood it was more like, you know, like I'm doing it now, like I'm reading stuff on the wall, and it's not me going, this is a dream. It's me going, this is reality, because I can read that stuff, like, and so there,
Mm,
or like, you look at your hands, and or is that to keep the dreaming going? The one thing I do remember is when I was in that lucid dream experience, I found it fascinating that I was there, and somewhere above me or around me, I guess, like I'm inside my own head. It's such a strange feeling. It's like being a tiny man inside your own bigger man.
mm,
Um, I remembered very clearly, like reading books about the situation I was in, and there was a technique for when the dream starts to lose its lucidity. You stick your arms out and you spin around. I don't know. They did that
mm.
and it worked. I took knowledge from the real world and used it inside the dream world, and it worked. And it's like, it's bizarre. But I mean, that's not magic. It's science. Like people did, very intensive scientific studies into this phenomenon, like the 80s, like the Stephen
Mm.
LaBerge, I think, the Onironauts, which is what I call some of my characters in my comics and things.
Yeah, I hadn't.
Um,
I read that some of your characters were called anironauts, but I've never heard that term before. Is that a dream,
that's where it comes from. Yeah,
like a astronaut, like a dream astronaut? Is that what that kind of is?
it means sailor of dreams. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
That's what the participants in the LaBerge sleep studies came to call themselves. But they were doing all kinds of really interesting stuff. Like they showed that, they were shining like red lights into people's, closed eyes while they were in REM,
Mm,
and they trained themselves to like if they're in a dream and they see a flashing red light in the dream, that's actually in reality. So there was this two-way communication, and they did, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were able to show that people in a dream could recognize that out of perspective, and because they were lucid, they were doing something with their sleeping bodies to communicate back, which is just so fascinating to me. Like, it's this it's another state of consciousness that we all go into all the time. And I don't know. And over the years, obviously, it became very interesting to me to explore that in art, and I mean, I'm not the first person to think about what it would be like if the land of dreams was real, like, I mean, Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and an earlier influence for me was H.P. Lovecraft's The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. I don't know if you've ever read any of his stuff or read that
Yeah,
one.
a few. Yeah, he's fantastic.
You know that story? So
I
it's
know, not
very
that one.
it's a good one. It's a novella. It's a long one. But it's essentially about a guy who is like he had a dream once about this magical city, and so he in the real world like learns how to essentially lucid dream, and goes on a quest to get back to the city, and it's just this lot. It's a dream quest, and
Mm.
I guess over the years I'm like, what if we did that, but it was like funny, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what if we
bit absurd. Mm.
explored that, but also, like threw in some, I don't know, a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah,
Right.
anyway, interesting.
Did you ever read any of, I think his name was Robert Munro's work, and they've got the Munro Institute now, which is this I kind of I kind of went in and out of thinking, oh, this is amazing, and then like, ah, this is all nonsense. But I think the Munro Institute's still going today, and I think it's really trying to study and map things like astral projection and lucid dreaming and
Right.
collate
Is that like
information.
the you know what do they call it? Spy stuff in the Cold War, psychic
Oh,
spy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
remote viewing.
Remote
Is
view.
is that
I
what it
think so. It's been a while since I looked at the Munro Institute, but I think there's yeah, it's all of that. What do you think?
is?
Those remote viewing, that stuff's pretty wild, isn't it? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. I think that again that something very strange is going on.
Mm,
Um, but I feel like it's so much weirder and subtler than, you know, when I hear somebody going, oh, like um you can definitely, view this object by doing these stages of, meditation or whatever, and preparation, and you can see this object and it's because of this and this and this. Like, I don't know, like I feel like maybe I feel that the biggest hurdle for me in sort of swallowing anything that anybody tells me at all like starts with us not really understanding what consciousness is or how it works at all.
yeah.
Just baseline what we're using to have this conversation right now.
Mm,
We're having it over a video thing, like all this technology and stuff, but we're still doing something magical, in a way, like communicating the inner ideas and things. But then, then I take a step back and I'm like, I don't know, these words are coming out of my mouth. They just seem to be coming out of my mouth and not even thinking, it's like I feel like a puppet on a string sometimes. I start to get worried. Do I even what is free will? Blah blah blah. So when people are already like way down the line talking about all this stuff, I don't even know if
yeah.
conscious I don't know. Like, I think that there's extremely compelling data to point towards a like some sort of uh, collective consciousness that we're all sort of swimming in all the time, you
Mm,
know, and it's more like a whole bunch of stuff to me points towards that, and I think that a lot of the paranormal stuff that isn't just horseshit, the core of these liminal strange experiences that humans seem to just keep having, I think it's all got to do with consciousness. Fortunately, we don't know what that is. It's so weird to me. Like we have this I mean we do. We can go, well, blah blah blah. Like we can look at a brain and we can see these things firing and stuff, but I don't know.
yeah,
Like
but still, it's still not answering the real, I don't know, the real guts of it, I think. Yeah, it's crazy how we really still don't have the answers to some of just the biggest questions, you know, cosmic questions or just existential questions. Is there a God? What even is consciousness? What even is
Yeah.
gravity? You know, just like a bit.
How do
There's a
magnets
lot of
work?
big questions that we have a lot of explanations that gets very close and explains the mechanisms, but it doesn't answer the real, you know, why even does life exist? It could just very easily just be the abyss of rocks bumping around, but I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like,
I mean, it totally could be. Like I think that, you know, we are potentially close to, you know, it's things with like, you know, extraterrestrial life, whatever that means, you know, another consciousness that isn't human consciousness, you know, that isn't from here. I don't know, it's a weird one. It's like if we it's like or even, you know, the development of some sort of artificial consciousness, like which, you know, may or may not be total science fiction. Like you know, we go, oh, it can't happen because it's not a human and it doesn't have the, you know, the fundamental kind of, you know, this magical, it always like these things that always come down to like begging the question of like, well, what is it that makes human consciousness so special? Like, and you know, a religious person or somebody who was, you know, sure of whatever mystical belief system that they were running with, would say, oh, it's the soul, or it's chi, or it's this or that. So all of these words we have for something that is, I don't know, like pretty nebulous, so nebulous, the most nebulous thing in the world, but also the thing that everything kind of relies on. Like, you know, in our like we obviously don't live on a planet filled with puppets who don't have free will. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we
mm,
obviously don't.
mm,
It feels like that way sometimes. Like, and I see it in myself. Like you know, how again, just how easily we are manipulated, either by others or by ourselves. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like again, there's a lot that we just don't know, and I am inherently very skeptical of anybody who is claiming to have any answers.
yeah.
Beyond, you know, of course, you know, like science is amazing and science has done incredible things. I'm not saying I'm skeptical of like things that we've uncovered via the scientific method, but it just feels like there's this whole side of human experience which is just it seems fundamentally opposed to being discovered by the scientific method, which is unfortunate because it leaves us in the hands of some pretty bad actors in the world.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
tough.
and it is very tempting when someone comes along and claims they know. I mean, that's the entire you know, backbone of cults, right? I mean, and we could even say religion, although religion, you know, means religion has stood the test of time for you know, thousands of years, but various religions. So maybe not quite, yeah, but yeah, it is interesting when someone comes along and claims they know. It's very tempting to be sucked in, I guess. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Tell us about your interest in the occult. When did that start, and kind of what brand of the occult, and what can you tell me about the occult
Uh, so yeah, the
or magic?
magic. So like I guess it just all goes back to the same place in terms of my, you know, desire to like, you know, forgetting about, you know, Catholic kind of ideas and all of that stuff and then just that, well, okay, like, you know, what else is there? And obviously like I'm very interested in comparative religion, you know, like I love learning about you know, world religions and, you know, like I've been to uh, you know, around Southeast Asia and recently Japan, which was amazing. Just sort of digging into stuff. The thing is, like underneath all of the stuff on top that we have, there's there's the exoteric side, but then there's the esoteric side, you know. So I never stopped being really interested in Christianity, like as a historical kind of thing that happened. Like the early church is like super interesting, and the more you read about that stuff, the more you read about how um, it is all very much tied to this idea of like, you know, mystery schools. And I still think the mystery schools were mostly just like, this is how algebra works, or, you know, like this is what a right
Mm.
angle is. You know, that's the teachings, more so than, you know, here's a way to summon demons or whatever.
Right.
I don't know, like along the way you just get exposed to it. You're like, oh, like there are, oh, okay, like there really were like people in the Middle Ages who had magical spell books. Like there really were wizards, there really were witches, there really were sorcerers, like going all the way back to pre like biblical times, you know, like the wise men, you know, in the Bible, this story, like those guys were sorcerers, you know, and just this sort of, I don't know, like probably at some point very early on, I got into through comics like Alan Moore and Grant Morrison, like they were very
Oh, yep,
big,
yep.
and both those guys are like, you know, chaos magicians, and so like I got into that. I look, my magical practice over the years has been like confined to occasionally a bit of half-assed sigil work, but that's
Mm.
more an aesthetic sort of thing than a, you know, like a trying to shift reality with my will.
Would that be
You know,
some of the kind of imaginary I think they're imaginary languages that you've kind of put in that they seem to be in I think there was some in the short silent comics and things like that, or yeah, there seems to have been some kind of thread of cool imaginary languages that you've come up. Is that related to sigil stuff?
yeah, I mean, in a way, like the sort of alien, like I've come to call it dream tongue, like the alien hieroglyphs that appear in my comics is um more just me trying to express the shifting nature of words and dreams, you know, like literally not being able to read stuff in dreams, and, you know, the blah, blah,
Mm.
blah. But that said, like I definitely have put some sigils into various bits of art, and I think the back cover to one of my old comics, which I don't think I had around. But so like the interest for me with like the occult has definitely been more of like an armchair kind of, like
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of reprints of medieval grimoires, but I'm not like sacrificing a goat to a under this moon, or bringing a bit of a lot of the stuff in those books is like, you know, there's one spell which is like how to seduce a pretty woman. Like I think all you need is a hunk of cheese. Like it's not even a spell, literally a hunk of
A
cheese,
nice
put it on your
aged,
window.
yeah, nice
Yeah.
aged blue, or a good goat's. Yep.
Yeah. But it's
Not
it's like
wrong.
the it's like the yeah, it's I don't, well, tell me about it. It's the history of the world though. Like whether or not like any of the occult, any of the stuff is real, or, you know, there is a sort of, you know, a secret path, and whatever. Like a lot of people who've been influential in our actual history believe that, and maybe still do. And, you know, I think that there is, not that I'm going to stop myself now before I sound like I'm talking about some sort of, you know, Illuminati, you know, occult, you know, satanic conspiracy and stuff. But like, um, there is a esoteric occult history to the world, and it's super interesting. You know, like
Mm.
reading about like Aleister Crowley, like what a dick, what an asshole, but like what an interesting person. You know, like what just an absolute piece of shit and hilarious troll that guy was. Like, um, plus, you know, a spy, an MI6 agent, you know, all of this stuff is sort of, I don't know, it's just fascinating to me. And then, you know, that connects with Jack Parsons and like all
Jack
of the,
Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard,
like L. Ron Hubbard,
Scientology.
like all of
Yeah.
this, like it's all like, again, it's all connected.
It's crazy
The
when you
thread,
realize that, hey.
there is a thread that runs through it all. And like whether or not Jack Parsons, um, you know, and L. Ron Hubbard summoned, you know, the Scarlet Woman in their weird desert rituals that they were doing. I don't think that they did, but they did, and they were important people in 21st century, 20th century, 21st century. Like we wouldn't have got to the moon without, um,
Jack,
Jack Parsons.
Jack
And
Parsons, yeah.
just fascinating to me. We wouldn't have got to the moon without a lot of women who worked for NASA who totally unsung. I mean, there's another side to the sort of the esoteric occult history is you realize how much is left out of what
Mm.
we're talking about this sort of sanitized, easy version of events. I don't know, but
It
yeah, I think that there is again something strange going on. I think that I mean I've personally had some at least very subtle but convincing kind of experiences that lead me to believe that, you know, there is a aspect to fundamental reality that we're missing something, you know? And I think all of this stuff is an expression of humans who are trying to sort of find out what that thing is. But again, it's like you're not going to find that in by reading, the Book of the Law by Crowley or I don't know. You're not
mm,
going to find it by becoming an ardent Thelemite and spending 30 years of your life doing sex rituals. You might have a lot of fun, but it's not going to, you know,
yeah.
you'll be no closer to the truth than the person who didn't do that. So
Right,
I don't
right.
know.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
Yeah,
at.
I mean, I agree with you. I think there is something else to this reality. It's I've dabbled in pretty deeply, various ideas and conspiracy theories and got pretty deep into psychedelics and things like that. And I mean, you know, I find all those subjects really, really interesting, but yeah, still not I mean, even just the UFO subject got me down a decent rabbit hole in the last year or maybe two. I mean, I've always been very interested in the subject, but there's things that are there's so many reports of the same thing. There's so
There's a
many.
lot.
There's a lot of really, really strange stuff, and there's a lot of footage. There's a lot of footage that constantly comes up that is unexplainable, that has similarities. What is going on? Is it technologies? Is it spirits? Is it aliens? Another thing with like DMT. I don't know if you've ever done that, but if you do enough or enough times, you're bound to come across strange entities, and you can say, sure, I meet entities or characters, whatever, in dreams all the time, and they seem very real at the time. But there's something very, very strange about DMT entities, and whether it's the brain, the complexity of the brain reflecting stuff back, very possibly, if it's access to another thing, another dimension, or a higher vibration, just a slightly different channel. Um, I don't think that sounds unlikely either. There's
Maybe maybe UFOs, maybe DMT entities have learned how to come over to our side,
yeah, well,
What
totally,
kind of
totally, and
sounds like nonsense, but I'm just like, well, what, like, I don't know, like, there's this sort of idea of like, common sense and like, oh, that sounds ridiculous. But I'm just like, well, I don't kind of lost my way a bit with like, what, like, why is that ridiculous? I mean, people are like, so like UFOs. That's something that I've never lost interest in. Like I like you got very into a lot of conspiracy stuff in my early 20s as well. Like that's another huge part of all of this. Like it's all for me. Like
mm,
it's all tied into that. But I, like yourself, I sort of dug my way out of the rabbit hole, and I went very in the opposite direction and became like an arch materialist sort of skeptic for a long
well,
time. But
same
yeah,
dude, same, and I'm kind
yeah,
of softening to that too now. Now I'm like, I was just like, it's all bullshit. I'm
yeah,
staunchly like, nah, this is all like, it's a con. But I mean, even now, just the UFO subject got me back. I'm like, well, you know, maybe I can be
that's
open to these. I really don't know.
it never really went away for me in terms of the UFO thing. It was always just like, yeah, then there's that. Like, I mean, I've never seen anything spectacular myself. You were asking about my mother's sighting earlier
Mm,
on.
yeah.
So I got her permission to talk about it for this podcast.
Oh, great.
Um, she's like just she's a very funny, interesting woman. She's not a big like UFO like, you know, kind of just a normal person, you know. So
Yeah.
when she was like, I don't know, what was she, 15 or 16? She was with a friend. They were at Red Beach in Auckland, out of Auckland, up north actually, in the North Island of New Zealand. So this would have been like, I don't know, the early 70s maybe. Um, early 70s, early 70s, probably the late, somewhere around
Yeah.
there. She got the exact date. Should have worked that out. But a while back, and they're sitting on the beach at night, and a light starts to sort of make itself known from the horizon. It starts to come across the water towards them, across the bay, and this object resolved itself. So like what I want you to do now is hold up your thumb, look at your thumbnail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the sky, it resolved to about that big, but times three. So your thumbnail and again on either side. So
Gotcha.
like that in the sky. And it was like a cigar shape. You can
Mm-hmm.
put your thumb
Yep.
down.
Okay. Nothing's gonna happen.
Enjoying the story. Keep going.
Cool
So
story,
yeah,
bro. Yeah.
pretty like a significant. So it just came in real slow, just drifted in, and they were like, "What is this?" They thought maybe it was like a blimp. Again, this is like the early 70s. Um, Sails in, resolves itself to about that big and stops, just dead still in the sky. And they were like, it's a blimp. So it was a cigar shape, and around each side had a row of lights on each end, and in the middle, so like a ring going around three times, going
Mm-hmm.
two green rings of lights and one red, or the opposite, red or green, I can't remember. Um, and they were just like, what is that? And then it did the typical thing that UFOs do. It just went do, and then up
Mm.
into space, and or wherever they go. And my mum told me that story when I was about, I don't know, 7 or something, you know.
Mm.
And I just, I've asked her about that story all through my life. She's never changed the story. Like she's got a friend who was there with her who just, says the same thing about it. They don't know. My mum was just like, oh, it's aliens, of course. Like, what else would it be?
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
I think she had a copy of Communion.
Oh yeah.
The terrifying cover that freaks everybody out. Did the same to me when I was. So yeah, I've always just been like, I don't know, like this. I've definitely been at a certain point like it's the Greys and they're doing like genetic stuff, or it's this, it's that. It's there's a whole bunch. There's some sort of like galactic federation. I don't believe any of that stuff anymore about it, like
Mm.
at all. Like
Mm.
again, it's like it's all just people making up stories about a phenomena that seems to be very hard to pin down. Like, and
Yeah.
the stuff that's coming out seems to have slowed down to a trickle. The political government stuff going on in the States, all of that stuff, I imagine, is partly why it's reinvigorated your imagination around this subject. Like, it's pretty crazy. Some of the
Yeah.
very, it isn't just, then we go, oh, the classic disinfo. It's just like a drunken farmer in the Midwest or something. She's like, no, this was my mum who saw this, and like,
Mm.
she's not full of shit about it. She saw that, whatever the fuck it was. Pilots are seeing that stuff every day, off the west coast of America and all over. It's a thing. It's an actual thing that's going on. It's a flight safety hazard. They don't know what this stuff is. I think that the cover up around it, again, which if anybody looks into this for any amount of time, that's the easiest thing to prove that there's been a massive disinfo
There is a
cover up.
cover up of the
Yeah, like
subject. There definitely is a
covering
cover up.
something up.
Yeah.
I think it
What it is, we
started.
don't know. Mm.
I honestly think it really did start because they were receiving so many calls about UFOs right at the beginning of the Cold War that it became a potential fog of war situation, and they were like, "We need to." I mean, I think that because I know that because there's documents that say it. Like that's
Mm.
why they started the cover up because they didn't want to be caught flat-footed by the Russians who might use a fake invasion to, it was like literal phone lines being flooded with information. They had to make that go away, and they did it really successfully. I think that the continued cover up and all of the disinformation since then, the thing that they're trying to cover up, the big secret, I think is that they have no fucking idea what it is at
Mm.
all.
Mm.
I don't think that you know, they're talking about all this crash retrieval stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. But if they do have anything, I don't think they've got any idea what it is. I think it's like I think it's too weird. Again, maybe DMT entity spacecraft, or you know, like Mindcraft. I'm being stupid. I don't actually think that, but you know, it's as good as an excuse as any at this point. And I honestly, I think the evidence points towards a total befuddlement of every government in the world around this stuff, an acknowledgement that it's a real thing that has real world ramifications, especially these days. And this is why that they've started to make it, you know, they're trying to reverse the disinfo campaign, and they've kind of done that. You know, I think you're not as crazy talking about this stuff as you were even 5 years ago.
Right. Right.
You have this conversation. You can talk to people at a party and or your in-laws or this and that, and like people will have a story, you know. So
Mm.
many people have had experiences, and yes, like a lot of these experiences are mundane things. There's a scientific explanation, but there's a core to all of this stuff, which I think goes beyond that stuff. I think that the governments of the world have been aware of this for a long time, and I think that they don't want to admit that they've got no idea. So it's governments around the world trying to use this thing to freak each other out. It's a real thing. I'm not saying that they've faked it all, but I think some of it is, and I think that the whole field is just so mired in horse shit and charlatans and well-meaning people who have like fallen for maybe their own bullshit around it, you know.
Mm.
But yeah, I feel like I don't know. If I was to hazard a guess about what it is myself, I've got two theories.
Hmm.
One of them is sort of kind of sad and more mundane, and um, some of this phenomena potentially represents like a kind of uh, you know, like an ancient. So here's a scenario: ancient civilization somewhere a long way away. They're now dead, but a long time ago they sent out their own version of advanced AI, self-replicating nanobots across the galaxy. You know, and this shit is everywhere. There's probably UFOs on Mars. There's probably UFOs on every planet in the
Yeah.
world. That's
Dark
very
side of the
advanced.
moon.
Well, yeah, sure, sure. But what it is, it's like a malfunctioning, crazy AI. Like I'm spinning a story now. Like you know, like maybe like it's ancient AI system that's gone insane, you know, and it's behaving in this way that um doesn't really make any sense. Like, oh yeah, sometimes it kind of looks like it's you know, gathering information or, you know, but the way that like a lot of the more, in my opinion, a lot of the more interesting sightings and experiences that people have play out, they're real weird. They're surreal. Like there's the element, the high
Yeah.
strangeness, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. And, you know, there's a part of me that's just like, you know, other paranormal experiences that, again, many or most of which can be explained away by bad wiring or, um, you know, gases coming out of, you know, swamp gas, whatever. Like plenty of explanations for plenty of stuff, but there's this core element to other experiences that people have. And I don't know, maybe it's just all the same thing, you know, like it's this sort of whatever it is seems to be. And then, you know, like I think about the Jacques Vallée kind of theory, you know, the passport to Magonia and all of that. Like it's some sort of inherent thing that is affected by our consciousness and it's affecting our consciousness. It's a control system of some kind. Then I'm like, well, who put that there? Like, you know, that becomes a mythology in of itself. Like, but what to me, what seems to ring true a lot of the time is that the phenomena at large seems to respond to our awareness of it, you know, like it's something happening to us, but we're happening to it, you know. Maybe the only way it can manifest is through our imaginations. Maybe that's why we you know, the spaceships, people are like, oh, you know, we used to see flying saucers, now we see Tic Tacs, and we see weird like spheres inside balls and things. Like, you know, people are still seeing flying saucers as well, but I don't know. Like, there was one story which always stuck with me where a witness saw what they said was basically the Starship Enterprise. They were like, it looked exactly like the Starship Enterprise, down to having the word the Enterprise on the side of it, but it was upside down. They were like, but
Mm.
it was the wrong way around. And it just seems like maybe that person just made that up because people are creative and they're trolls and stuff. But it's that kind of stuff that rings truer to me. It's like it's whatever is going on, it's weirder and more subtle than like I don't know, um, governments colluding with
Yeah,
with
Illuminati, this or that, or you
yeah,
know.
I don't think any of that holds up because I think that as evil as the people who control our planet are, I think they're also pretty inept most of the time. And like
Yeah.
not that, you know, people like, you know, surely this would have all come out by now. Like it has come out. It's been coming out for since Roswell. Like before Roswell, people have been talking about this stuff. It's just the disinformation has been so strong that it's um it's hard to see through. And that is why, sorry, you can tell like this is a, you know, I can that pitch in my voice and the blah blah, you know what that's like, the oh my God. But that's why the disinformation campaign, this is why they're trying to stop it now, because back in the day, the UFO phenomena was a problem for them in terms of uh you know, the Russians, and it's a fog of war thing. And there are all these people ringing in about UFOs, and that's going to be taken advantage of by the Russians. They're either going to fake a UFO invasion or they're going to take advantage of our phone lines being clogged up and they're going to fire missiles and blah, blah, blah. We've got to put a fucking lid on this. And they did that so successfully. But now, you know, you've got a sailor on a nuclear powered sub off the west coast of America, and you know, he sees some bizarre lights in the sky. Up until a little while ago, he would not report that because, you know, he doesn't want to be called crazy. He doesn't want to ruin his career by talking about a UFO. Problem is, these days, we really do have advanced drones with this shit flying around that we've got no idea about, you know, like
Mm.
for sure. And so the disinformation campaign that was created to plug up a gap in national security due to our own technology has given rise to a massive gap in national security. And I think that enough people have actually realized that. And you know, you don't need like crash retrieval programs to come to that conclusion. If you're in government in the States in an intelligence role, you know that the stuff is real and it's a thing. How much of it is real, I don't know, but it is, even if like it's all prosaic in terms of explanations. If if your own military isn't reporting stuff because they're afraid of looking crazy, that's a huge problem,
Right.
massive problem, which
Yeah.
will again be taken advantage of, and I think has been multiple times. But yeah, again, underneath all of that noise, there's something actually occurring. So whatever my mother saw back in the early 70s on a random beach with her friend, like like that's not technology that was even around in black budget stuff. Like there was nothing, there's still nothing as far as I'm aware of that go duh, 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 and like, you
Yeah.
know,
Zip off faster
golf
than
up
you can track it.
ridiculous or stop on a dime, you know. It's crazy stuff. And it fascinates me. I forget about it sometimes, and then I'm like, whoa, no shit, there's that. I mean, if it all turns out to be total horseshit, like, and it's all able to be explained, like that's fine, I guess, but I don't know. I think it's more likely that it's just going to keep on being a strange, unsolvable mystery, like which kind of sucks. I don't know. There are people
Yeah.
who are like, oh, this disclosure effort is leading up. They know that there's going to be some sort of mass sighting at a certain point, and they're trying to get us ready. And I don't know, maybe, but
Yeah, maybe,
like,
but no reason to believe that.
why
Yeah.
would you think that? Yeah. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. It really does. You know, of all the conspiracy theories out there, I feel that that one does inspire the most wonder, and you know, and does deserve inquiry into it because there are so many things. There's so many, you know. Have you looked at the what's it called, the Baltic Sea UFO? They did these scans and they found this giant weird shaped disc at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. And yeah, then there's an article saying, oh, it was completely debunked, but it wasn't debunked. It's, someone puts out a debunked article and then everyone goes, oh, mystery over, don't need to think about that again. The crop circle one's another one that I just love. Crop circles, I just think they're
Yeah,
incredibly beautiful.
it is
Some
fucking
guys,
weird.
and they've been going on for decades. Two guys came out and said, no, it was us with boards and rope. They never demonstrated how they could do complex patterns. They could demonstrate that they could do a circle,
Yeah,
and I'm sure some crop circles are fake. But if you really go, I've got a book on crop circles, and if you look at some of the complexity of some of these, some of them I really don't think are possible to do. They if there
and
was a more
they're done in the dark overnight.
in
Like
the pitch
it's
dark overnight, it's just too, yeah. The only other alternative theory I can think of about crop circles would be maybe that they're printed from satellites. Maybe there's some kind of technology that they were able to concentrate energy to push down, and maybe the guy who's just in charge of testing that energy is just a science nerd who loves geometry, and he's,
I mean,
that's the only other thing I could think of. But I've got no idea if that technology exists. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, but the point is that there's real things, there's real tangible things that we can point to regarding the subject that does deserve inquiry. And yeah, crazy how successful the stigma attached to the subject has been for forever up until, like you said, probably the last 5 years, maybe even less.
it's
Yeah,
unfortunate, I think, that, with like, conspiracy theory, like it it's very problematic because, everything gets put into that sort of basket, and like whether it's again like crop circles or UFOs, like shouldn't really be in the same basket as like 9/11 truth or
right.
like it's not the same thing, but it all kind of gets thrown into that sort of same thing. And like if people are uncomfortable with one thing in that basket, they might also, and I think quite often, will throw out everything else in that basket that it's all being put into. I mean, like the the thing with the crop circles is like, yeah, like a bunch of them are totally done by humans for sure. Like, I mean, some of them are just they're advertising. It's how they're done. It's just the ones that are not, like, is there like, even if it is just some people doing the actual mysterious ones, the super complex ones that are done in the middle of the night, there's no footsteps, then the nodes on the corn is like microwaved, like it's been a while since I've read into this stuff, but it's bizarre. Even if it is humans doing this, that's really interesting. Why is
Yeah,
nobody paying attention to it?
exactly,
Like
exactly.
one of
Even
the
if it
most
is
major
people,
art movements of like the 20th and 21st centuries. It's like
totally.
the most interesting art that's going on. If that's all it is, just nobody gives a shit because it's like, oh, why would I? Ugh, yuck.
And not just nobody will give a shit if you point out there's new ones. Like a lot of people will still give an eye roll to it. Oh yeah, crop circles. Oh yeah, like this is incredible. Like I don't know. Like you said, even if
Again,
it is
even if
people,
it's
it's
prosaic, even if it's
mm,
people doing it, it's still amazing. Like it's
yeah,
incredible. Yeah, like
yeah. How does
there
Banksy
is.
get as much attention as he does, and the crop circle, prankster doesn't? It's yeah, totally. But yeah,
Yeah,
I love the subject. It's amazing.
yeah.
T Tell us about so you're working on a book, a graphic novel called sorry, Painted Wastelands, which yeah, kind of does encapsulate a lot of these subjects, alien worlds and stuff. Oh, but by the way, just before we move on, like so far, I remember thinking, and I've heard so many times people talk about conspiracy theorists and just go, God, they're not stupid. They can put so much of their attention and intelligence into researching these bunk theories, if they are or not. Imagine if they put that energy into something productive like story writing or stuff, which is exactly what you're doing. So
Okay. Yeah.
taking
It's
all the
been my
strange
saving
interests
grace, actually. Like,
and
yeah, like
making something incredibly unique and beautiful and interesting and yeah, a great way to express knowledge. So yeah, love it. But anyway, Painted Wastelands, tell us about it.
so the Band of Wastelands is not actually a graphic novel, it's a tabletop role-playing game.
Oh, right. You always write TTRPG, is that it?
That's what that means,
I
yeah.
didn't know what that meant.
Maybe
There
I
you
should
go.
write out the whole thing for people who
Right.
aren't.
So what is that?
Um, tabletop role-playing game, it's basically written for Dungeons and Dragons old school essentials. So it's like it's Dungeons and Dragons a version of that is are the rules. But so I
Cool.
was approached earlier in the year by a guy called Chris Willett, who has, he's an experienced dungeon master or games master and writer for you know role-playing games. And it just happened that one of my kind of little goals was this year was to really get more into the sort of world like of role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons and various other things, make art for that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Um, I used to be really into role-playing games when I was a young adolescent. Yet another big influence I think that I always forget about. So played, sat around with friends and made up stories with a game book and had Dungeons and Dragons type adventures, and I was always really into like Choose Your Path, the fighting fantasy books. I was really big into. The art was a big influence. Monsters and demons and swords and stuff. Super
Mm.
cool. So yeah, I was just saying, he approached me, and it just so happens that I totally want to do something in this field, and he had seen a bunch of my artwork, and he was just like, "Oh, I think we can string together like a narrative and like write a story that people could play." And I was just like, I've actually been doing just that for 25 years, so I've got a pretty rich. It was like, holy shit! Like once I sent him all my comics, and I sent him all this, and I sent him all that stuff, and he was just like, my God, like this is a lot to work with. So The Painted Wastelands is hopefully the first of several, at least, books, which are basically just games that you can play with your friends, if you have any friends. I hope. Using the book as a sort of like a rule book and series of sort of encounters that can be had. In particular, The Painted Wastelands, it's set in a little corner of the Endless Plain, which is the imaginary desert of my dreams. It's right up against what we call the teeming edge, which is where sort of reality really breaks down. It's kind of where my imagination runs out, I suppose. Like for
Right.
nothing. It's up against that. And yeah, it's a book about weirdos in the desert, kind of unearthing ancient civilizations. There's a kind of a mystical pilgrimage one can go on within the book. There's bizarre monsters to fight. There's various scenarios, some of them straight out of my comics that we've sort of incorporated into the work. And Chris has just done a really amazing job, like kind of like writing the book, like definitely writing it sort of, hand in hand, in the sense that like he'll bring me like a passage or a scenario, and he'll be like, oh, he'll ask me questions about what would happen and within the world and stuff. But he's just gotten amazing at totally like writing stories and events within my imaginary world, that just felt like something that I would have written had I had the idea. It's really good.
Right.
I enjoy him coming up with lots of bizarre scenarios that I'm just like, that is just grade A, exactly what would happen in that scenario. Perfect. And so I'm producing like hundreds of color illustrations to go along with it. So like, it's a role-playing game that you can play, but in my mind, it's also like my first art book slash kind of like lore book, in terms
Right.
of my work. And And what we hope to do, you know, unless it's a catastrophic failure, touch wood, it's not. We'll do some follow-up books and explore more of this world that I've been kind of writing about for years, decades. So the next one is going to be about the lands of dust, which are far across the ocean, and that's a lot more kind of horror, kind of necromancy, and sort of, there's a major city hub there, where we'll have intrigue and societal kind of political stuff going on. And eventually, I guess we'll get to the city of the ever open eye, which is a place that I haven't actually spent a lot of time in creatively with my comics or even my pictures for quite a long time. I've mostly been hanging out in the desert and on the beaches of the 100-year coast. But I don't know. I went to Tokyo recently and
Love
took
Japan.
that place in, and it was kind of humbling to just look at Tokyo from, I don't know, half a kilometer up and kind of go, right, okay, this is like way bigger than my imagination, Like, it's humbling, and a good thing. But yeah, it's, anyway, that's where we're at with that. We've got a Kickstarter coming soon, 1st of August. So yeah, really hurtling along now. All the writing is done. I think it's just needs one last polish with a professional editor. And I'm just like hacking away at the art, and yeah, it's cool. I'm really excited about it. It's there's a bunch of other sort of stuff that comes with it, like a DM screen and like a deck of magical cards that they've sort of a parody on the Rider-Waite tarot deck.
Cool.
It's just like, what would the tarot deck look like if you were in a dream? And it was just bizarre, like repulsive nonsense instead of
So
like,
the artwork for Painted Wastelands is much more probably what I've known, that kind of style where things like Mr. Unpronounceable. It's like I've only just kind of been aware of that recently, but you've really kind of finally crafted this very unique, very distinct style of aliens, kind of magical cosmic tribal babes, and just all sorts of weird, strange life, forms, and floating creatures and giant insects, and every single one of them is different. It's very psychedelic, and it's very it's just incredible. Absolutely love it. What kind of was your home for this world that you've done before? Because Painted Wastelands hasn't come out yet, but you've been doing these for decades. Have you made graphic novels based around this world? Is it just pieces of art that you've just been making, and slowly that just comes, there's more and more and more? Or where's the home? Where's the hub of this world been physically?
In the real world? Well, I mean,
in the real
like
world, yeah.
the comics, all the Mr. Unpronounceable stuff is really the core kind of text. I mean, he's often in the city, or he's in, and it's black and white, obviously. Like all of those comics are mostly black and white. He's often somewhere in the Endless Plain. The Painted Wastelands, that particular little corner of it, has really been kind of described properly for the first time in this book that I'm putting together with my friend Chris. But like for the last maybe since really even before the pandemic, like I was doing a lot of work set in the 100-year coast. Again, it's all the same world. There are just there's the desert, there's another desert that's more horror-ish, there's a big city, there's a big ocean, and then there's like on that side of on the other side of the ocean, there's the 100-year coast, which is really a big archipelago, again filled with sorcerers, the dreamers, the naked ladies that you would have seen a lot of. Just a lot of painting. Like I haven't done a lot of comics in the last bunch of years. During the pandemic, I had to leave my full-time job, so just surviving off selling little paintings online, and must have drawn hundreds of little pictures of naked ladies, but paid the rent, got us through.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, great.
um,
Have you
uh,
built a like have you built a map of this? Like is there a have you mapped it all out? Like is it just in your head or have you actually kind of
I
drawn
mean,
up or painted a giant map so it's all kind of starting to take actual shape and a bit of geography to it and
not so much. I do have to do one for the painted wastelands. Like there's a map I need to
mm,
draw, which is like the wider world.
mm,
I've drawn it on the back of a napkin.
yeah.
It's pretty. It's kind of like big desert, big city, big ocean, another big desert. Like there's really not, there's some jungles, and then desert. I don't know. It's not that complex. So it'll be interesting when I actually come to draw it. It's like, oh God, like kind of just looks like a sandwich. Like there are really a lot of, I think the idea for me, like, of, everything is very nebulous. So I think it's, you know, um, I've drawn sort of images before. It's like, an approximate current version of the 100-year coast, but it's just that the islands move, like it's this, and it's
Mm.
the same thing with the city of the urban eye, like the buildings move. So, you might not, your house might not be there when you come back. But the only way to really get anywhere is through advanced alchemical sort of sorcery. Just to go to the shops, you're going to need some sort of
Yeah,
magical amulet to find your way back to your neighborhood, which may
fantastic.
be being ravaged by demons by the time you get, and it's just a very chaotic kind of
Love
world
it.
filled with lots of stuff. But
Do you
yeah, I
have
don't know. Just
any
everything I've done in the last 25 years has really just been set in this world. So.
Hmm. Do you have any ambitions of turning any of this into like a feature film or a TV series or any kind of large scale production or are you just very happy having it all exist the way it's existing?
Oh no, I mean it'd be amazing to have like a Mr. Unpronounceable cartoon. That would be kind of the ultimate goal.
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of somewhat controversially experimenting with because it's controversial with AI generated stuff as well.
Oh, I wanted to comment on that. They're insane. I love them because like there's a lot of AI stuff going around, and yeah, some of it's really cool. But the way you've managed to, I don't know, that there is an art to knowing how to make really successful prompts, and you've created a consistent kind of aesthetic, as far as I can tell, strung them all together. They're so dark and creepy and incredibly beautiful and stylized and yeah it's like a trailer for a I don't know, it's almost like you would have seen the film The Holy Mountain back in this
Yeah,
made in the
yeah,
70s or something like that whole film is just a giant art piece, isn't it? It's just
yeah, yeah.
an
What's
incredible every
probably my favorite film, that movie. I
yeah
haven't seen it in a
yeah
while. Yeah,
God,
absolutely
I
incredible.
gotta maybe I'll watch that tonight. It's
Yeah.
very
Oh,
on
well.
brand for this conversation. But yeah, it has a similar feel to that. I absolutely love those but particularly that recent one you did. I think it's called Dream Plague Cycle 346. And again, this speaks to your just amazing imagination. Like I saw it on YouTube and the caption for it, you even just create a little story saying, this imaginary director, he's been broadcasting this to people's dreams, and this is all from the city. Like it just sucks you in. It just instantly sucks you into this other place. I love it.
That's the whole idea with that, and there were a couple of shows that I like, fake shows. The idea was like, and I've always been like super interested in like all of my drawings. You'll see posters on walls, you'll see television sets playing bizarre things, and I've always been fascinated with like what would the media be like in a sort of, ethereal, like semi-astral dream dimension or series of dimensions. Like what are people watching on Saturday morning? What's the what's on the news, what are the shows like? And so when the AI generated stuff, and look, I should preface this with like, there's a huge amount of controversy and ethical issues with AI, and I am at a point now where I'm just like, yeah, pretty bad. It's all
Mm.
pretty bad. But I can't like at the same time I'm like, I don't know, like as a just an indie artist, like I kind of can't resist using this sort of magical nonsense surrealist novelty generator that seems to be like plugged into the human visual subconscious. Like it's kind
Mm.
of hard to resist
Yeah.
using that to try and make art with, like much in the same way that it's hard to resist using like a cell phone or the internet or petrol or, living in late stage capitalism, I think in of itself is sort of hard to there's a lot of judgment uh against, AI. I think a huge amount of it is totally warranted. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a pretty amazing tool for making weird, weird art and like kind of uncovering novelty. Like I like to use it to. I don't like to tell it what to do. I kind of like to give it a little bit of flavor and then, you know, get it to produce a lot of bizarre imagery that I'm personally not prepared for. You know,
Mm.
like
Mm.
I'm always very surprised by the stuff that I can make it do. And again, it's not hard to do that stuff. Like it's a lot harder to make a picture with your hands, and I'll always do that. But it's just like another medium, I guess, to do these things. But what I've been doing is making like lost media, like fake TV shows. There's one called Hasterin's Dilemma, which is a soap opera. It's a sci-fi soap opera, but it's actually not a sci-fi soap opera. It's a soap opera made by an advanced civilization, full of aliens and robots and blah 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 blah. And it's been going for like thousands of years. It's up to like season 48,000 or whatever, and blah blah blah. And it's very popular in the lower ethereal hierarchy, which is where Mr. Unpronounceable lives, and blah blah blah. Then there's Legends of the Golden Child, which is like a kind of kids Western serial, which is like filled with like grotesque kind of horrors,
Yeah.
beyond
Cowboys and
comprehension.
clowns, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
plague clowns and cowboys and ancient legends and things. And that was pretty popular. I need to get back to that. And then there's Harmony of Rim, which is the one you mentioned, her dream plague cycle, which is she's a bit of a self insert too. Like she's kind of like, what if I was like David Lynch, but like lived in a dream world? Like what would I
Mm.
do? Like,
Yeah.
I'd do that.
Yeah.
So and it's all just world building. It's like, how do we describe the one of the I think one of the best ways to see what a society is like is by looking at its art and its legends and the stuff that's popular within it. And so it's been fun kind of really exploring all that with the evil robot um and helping me out. Yeah. I don't know if
Layers,
I think I
man.
went way off track with that question. I'm not sure.
Layers to just so many layers to your
Yeah.
imagination and world. It's cool. But that's the thing. Like I see a lot of people making, and I actually mostly hate AI to be honest. But like yeah,
Same.
like you, like any
Yeah,
creative,
totally.
it's actually it's too good. It's too amazing, and the results can be so incredible that I kind of worry that it can interfere with I'm already just so addicted to my phone. It eats up so much of my time, and I wish it didn't, but I'm completely addicted, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be reliant on anything for ideas. That's like, oh shit, that's a scary territory. But and there definitely are artists that completely generate images from AI, and there is a risk of losing something. What are we saying? But I will say in the way that you're using it, I think is a really interesting way. It's just a little side thing that's not your main practice, that it's just these little offshoots within your kind of universe. And I think they're really successful, really interesting. And yeah, I haven't been that enthralled by an AI generated movie. Yeah, but I think that's the best one I've seen, particularly that last one. And yeah, it's just really interesting, really cool. And the way you're doing it is, yeah, you don't have to dedicate months and months, I'm sure, to this fleeting idea. You can actually probably get it out, move on, and get on with
Mm.
the other bits you want to do. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Thank you. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I brought that up, I just remembered because you were talking about like, you know, do you want to have a show one day and stuff? And people keep going, oh my God, like this technology is getting so good now. Like you can make episodes of Legends of the Golden Child like all by yourself, and we can actually see the show and da 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 da. And part of me is like, I mean, I love that people are so into. I hope that they're more into the sort of. I've thought of all of this stuff more as a writing project than an AI art project. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mm.
the pictures are there to carry the world building along. But
Yeah, like
right,
storyboards, moving storyboards or something.
yeah, and you know, and so people, you know, and it's great. Like people have there were times when I was putting out like episode synopses for Legends of the Golden Child in particular on Instagram, and like 10 images and then like what happens in the episode. That was fun. And people just like ran with it, and there's something about like the marriage of that imagery, like I think because it is made up of so many images and so much of our own collective visual consciousness. Um, like the images that it can build are sometimes very like liminal and dreamlike, and they have this sense of nostalgia for a place you've never been. And I think that's just, you know, if you make it look in a certain kind of film grade, it like feels like something that you've seen when you woke up from a fever when you were 10 on the
Mm.
TV. And like, you know, that's what I'm trying to go for. And it works. Like it's and I've got very little to do with that. It's just the team. Again, it's easy. I don't like it when people create a mystique around it. It's very easy to do. Anybody can do
Mm.
it. Which is nice as well. Like I don't begrudge people like, you know, it's I think inherently bad. Like and
I
AI in
tend to think so
general,
too.
yeah, like I think the creative stuff is like, you know, we're at least pretty insulated from, I mean, more than a lot of other industries anyway. I think that it's yeah, there's a lot of worse stuff that is going to come from AI. I hope that there's some positive stuff. In any case, people are like, oh, you know, you're going to make a show that'd be amazing. Like, you know, the technology is getting so good now, you can make a whole show. I'd rather like do it for real with like humans and like
Yeah.
writers, like actually, like it seems like I don't like there's this attitude of like, oh, you know, like we're going to take back creativity from the, you know, the gatekeepers, and like anybody can like make an amazing show on their phone, and like, oh, like the plethora of like creative opportunities. And like that is true, like it is good that there's you know, more access for more people to do more interesting things with technology. And if they're using it creatively, that's better than using it to, I don't know, kill people with, you know,
Yeah.
flying drones and things, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Flame-throwing dog robots.
exactly,
Yeah.
you know. So on one hand, that's great, but on the other hand, like, I don't know, like, I sort of harken back to uh we're going to lose the water cooler conversation about like, man, how crazy was that episode of Twin Peaks last night? And you know,
Mm.
again, it's like th I think that we run the risk of like shattering off, and even more so, and becoming more atomized. Like, I think there was an episode of Black Mirror actually recently, which just totally addressed this, where the show that you're watching is different from the show that somebody else is watching. It's tailored to your, you know, and it's like,
Your mind
I don't
algorithm.
know. Yeah, it's just all the algorithm feeding you back your own fucking vomit. And I don't really know if that's going to be that good for,
Mm.
like, for us now. And I don't think it's going to leave any kind of lasting legacy, like a great novel or a great TV show that was actually made, um, or a movie or a painting or whatever. You know, like I feel we're really moving into a dangerous, weird. We're already there. That's the thing. We're already there. And like, I don't know. I feel bad sometimes about you know, I mean, I just like I worry that I'm part of the problem, like hastening along whatever is happening. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm using it in a way that is at least striving to do something really interesting and creative and like hopefully inspiring, imagination at least. And
Well, I definitely got that from it.
well, that's good.
And I'm someone who honestly I was actually thinking, I think yesterday, if I was able to pull the plug on AI and destroy it completely, I would. I think
Perhaps same.
if I was given that option, if I was in the center and the plugs are in the supercomputer and all I got to do is yank those plugs and the technology is lost, I think I would do it. I
Yeah,
don't think it's going to I I don't think it's taking us anywhere great, to be honest. And it's really fun and it's really useful and some of the results are awesome. It's too good. Like it is good. It's really good. Um, but it's a bit scary. I think it's Pandora's box.
it is. Yeah, and the thing is, it's open now, so
Mm-hmm.
like I guess
Mm-hmm.
we've got to go along for the ride. And I mean, it just to me it doesn't really feel like the problem. It just feels like a symptom of a wider issue. Um,
Mm.
where all the planet is not going well right now. I think everybody has a feeling everywhere.
Hey,
Even, you know,
Hey, I
it's
watched the presidential debate the other day, and my first thought was the future is bright. The future is looking
yes,
bright, people.
yeah. A lot of
In either
energy.
direction.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of, to be honest, a lot of deep cynicism about about uh about everything. Some days,
mm, hmm
some days I don't know. Like I don't know what to do. I don't have any answers, or I've only got questions. And that's that it's the same thing with the paranormal, occult, UFO stuff. It's exactly the same with the mundane. It's not that mundane. It's pretty exciting in a bad way. I don't know. I think we're in for a bumpy ride in many ways, and it's just yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I just keep making art, I
Keep
guess.
making art, man. Keep making
Uh,
art. Go outside and don't forget to see the magic in the world. It's the only
yeah,
thing I think people like you and I can do.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're not the technology sorcerers pushing this stuff in that direction. I don't know. It's yeah, not to sound too defeatist, but I really, yeah, I'm like you. I don't know what we can do. I think you just got to observe and try and unstick from the addictive nature of the things that are pushed on us. I mean,
Well,
I don't even know
like you said,
how. Sorry.
I was gonna say if you had the choice, you'd pull the plug on AI. Sometimes I'm like, I might, if I had the choice, I might just do that with the internet. Just shut the whole thing down,
Yeah,
Have a
yeah,
six
yeah.
month break. It's interesting, like, thinking of sort of various science fiction stories I've read where, you know, uh, vast kind of teleportation, galaxy-wide teleportation networks and wormhole networks and stuff have just been shut down, and then people have to like live on their own shitty little planet, and they're cut off
Mm.
from the Hyperion series as one of them. But I just wonder what would happen if we had to go back to like sending I mean, we could still have phone calls, but people had international. I don't know.
It probably
It's
will happen,
we're
man.
hurtling towards something. That's all, and I
Dude,
don't
it
know.
probably it probably will happen. The internet probably will not be a forever thing.
Yeah,
Probably. Like no one's done an attack on the internet. There hasn't been a cyber attack on the internet. It like
on the yeah,
imagine if that happened. It could happen. Who knows? Who knows?
pretty wild.
Like we'll pro
I know.
we'll definitely face a big stripping back at some point in the human story. Definitely.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah.
interesting to see what future civilizations unearth of this time. It'll happen.
Uh, yeah, like
We'll survive.
it's
I don't think if there is a big cataclysm, like I don't know. I feel like we'll survive. I feel like 99% of people will die. But in terms of the human race, I think we're very, very innovative. And I definitely do think we'll live on, even if it's a giant, giant, I'm not talking like in our lifetime, just at some point when, this giant, um, like what's the term when things is exponential growth where things just go faster and faster. Technology is just doing that. It's just we're kind of on this insane tipping point right now. And when you look at the development from the last 200 years to now and just how everything is speeding up every year, where's that gonna, it can't keep going infinitely faster, can it? There's got to be something that'll break. And when that breaks, there will be a very interesting, maybe a very interesting sci-fi
Yeah.
that I'm brewing up right now,
I mean, there is a way to thread the needle, like there is a way. There's like, for our global civilization to come together, stop fighting amongst ourselves, like sort out our issues with energy generation and global. I'm not saying I know it, but I mean there is a way. There is a science fiction story which you could tell where all of that gets solved and we get together and we go, right, like that's all solved. Let's start exploring the stars, like there's a utopian future that can await us. But you know, I I don't know. Like there's a way to thread the needle, but like I can't even see where the needle is, or the tiny little a bit of thread. It's
the choices
but I
we
mean,
make.
yeah, I just, as a I'm just glad that I went through what I did with the all of the hectic conspiracy stuff and the the vague little early 20s Messiah complex. I'm just glad that I went through that then,
Yeah.
and not I wouldn't want to be going through that now.
Mm.
It would be much harder to dig oneself out of that and to just be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be a strange time to grow up in this modern time,
And I've got a 10-year-old
Obviously.
kid. He's growing up through this now, and he seems not too befuddled by it all. But it's again, it's just things are speeding up.
Maybe he's got the
Things
dreamer gene.
are maybe, yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Hey Tim, we just smashed 2 hours. That was
Oh, yeah.
went by way too easily. Man, your art practice is fascinating. I had a look. Your comics are no longer purchasable, are they? They've all
No, they're out of
out of print.
that,
Yep.
yeah. So if
I did
anybody,
see you can buy them on like eBay for there were some collectors unread so they are attainable, but
I
they
think
seem
some
rare.
people are putting pretty exorbitant price on them and stuff. One of the ways that you can get all of my comics is digitally. You can get them digitally these days direct from me by joining my Patreon,
Hmm.
and even at the lowest tier, it's sort of a secret little surprise bonus that I send to people. I think you can even just pay like a couple of dollars a month and just do that once, and you can get all my comics. Or invite me onto a podcast like you did, and I'll send it to you. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, but I mean, like the best way to just get in touch with me is through my Instagram or through my website, which is just timmolloy.com, and work something out. There
Yeah.
is hope for some reprints in the future, but that's been a bit of a non-starter for several years now. So um, maybe when I eventually print my current story that I'm working on, there'll be looking back, and maybe I'll do a Kickstarter or something and republish things. But anyway, at this point, still available, but you got to just read them as a PDF, unfortunately.
Yeah. And how do people get original art from you?
They can just email me or
Yep.
follow me on Instagram. Like most of the time, I'm just painting pictures and putting them up and going first one to message me. and who wants it gets it. But I do a lot of commissions. I imagine that you'll have some like links to my
Yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. All the links for sure.
Yeah, Tim Molloy art on Instagram. Just get in touch with me there. People tell me that I'm quite approachable and friendly for an artist. Like I don't know, there must be some douchebags out there who aren't nice to their fans, but I always like to have a chat and get into it with people, and so yeah, feel anybody can feel free to just DM me on various places.
Rad.
Yeah.
Awesome. Tim, you're awesome. Your work is awesome. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to chat with you and kind of go a bit deep into to your strange, fun, psychedelic, fever dream, intergalactic world.
Thanks for coming
Fantastic.
along. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Thanks, man, and thanks everyone for listening. Cool. Take care. Bye.